The investor's chief problem and even his worst enemy is likely to be himself. So wrote Benjamin Graham in The Intelligent Investor, described by Warren Buffett as by far the best book on investing ever written. We're going to explain why Graham was right and what you can do about it. I'm Robin Powell. I'm a financial journalist, and with the help of behavioural finance expert Joe Wiggins, we're going to be showing you how the way you behave as an investor could be costing you a fortune. We'll also help you to modify your behaviour to improve your chances of a successful outcome. But first things first, what do we mean by behavioural finance?
Behavioural finance is simply looking at the gap between what we should be doing and what we actually do. And unfortunately, as humans, we don't always follow our best laid plans. Many of the things that have made humans a very successful species lead us to make quite poor long-term investment decisions.
It's not just investment decisions that our behaviour has an adverse impact on, as anyone who's been on a health drive will tell you.
Let's say we have a plan to get healthier over the next 6 months. So we look at our diet and we look at our exercise regime and we think we're going to achieve this over the next 6 months. But actually we wake up on a Monday morning, it's raining outside, it's cold, it's dark. So we don't go to the gym, we don't exercise, and then we go to the supermarket and we sell that chocolate bar or that cake, and we just don't follow through with our plans. So there's always this gap between where we want to get to and where we actually get to. Investing is an incredibly difficult decision-making problem. We're bombarded with news, with noise, with information, with temptations to make poor decisions. And we can have a fantastic portfolio, well aligned to our long-term goals. But if we don't control our behaviour, then we're very unlikely to meet our objectives.
Academics have identified a wide range of behavioural biases that investors are prone to. We're going to look at some of the most important ones in turn. But beware, just knowing about these biases on its own is not enough to protect you from them.
There's this idea of a bias blind spot, which means we can see these behavioural problems in other people, but we just don't see them in ourselves. So the first step to becoming a better investor is to understand that we will make these behavioural mistakes and we need to do something about them. So it has to be a fundamental part of our investment plan. It's not just about designing our asset allocation or our appropriate portfolio, it's about understanding how we will overcome some of the inevitable behavioural challenges that we're going to face.
So, recognising your blind spots is a useful first step. But what else can you do to stop yourself sabotaging your own investment strategy?
There's three things that I think that any investor or decision maker can do. I think the first and most important thing is just to recognise that we shouldn't make decisions when we're feeling highly emotional or tired. We're rarely going to get to a good outcome. And sometimes, perhaps if we're on the battlefield or if we're a surgeon doing an operation on someone, we have to make a decision right now to get to a good outcome. But if we're a private investor working with a financial advisor, we rarely have to make that choice. If we are feeling tired or stressed, we should just do what we'd recommend to our children. Go to bed, sleep on it, and see how you feel in the morning. I suspect 99 times out of 100 we'll get to a better answer from that. The second thing that we can do is have someone who's outside of us giving us some advice. Usually this can be a financial advisor, but it can be a family member. For example, I know I'm a pretty regretful decision maker. I've made my wife aware of that. So when we sit down and make decisions, she can remind me of that. She can actually provide some balance. A good financial advisor is going to be acutely aware of the problems of emotion and decision making. But what is really important to do is if you've got these inklings about yourself, make sure you tell your advisor. There's nothing to be ashamed of. The vast majority of them have been with us since birth and they're driven by evolution. The sensible thing to do is make people aware of your foibles so that they can help you manage them. And the last thing is just have a sensible long-term plan. The whole thing with emotions and decision making is they just pull us from pillar to post. If we have a very clear idea of what we're trying to do, when we're trying to do it by, and how we're going to do it, we've always got a benchmark where we can ask ourselves, does this decision take me to where I need to be or not? If we can do those three things, which are simple, easy and effective, then I think most of us will get to better outcomes.
Remember, we all have behavioural blind spots, and we're all prone to overconfidence. So if you're watching this and thinking, I don't need help with my behaviour, that may be a sign that you do.
A lot of people who think they're confident, that they know what they're going to do when markets fall and that they're going to stay cool, calm and collected, actually find out that they aren't. So merely being confident about your future emotional responses is a dangerous thing. I would argue that actually an advisor providing emotional support to an investor is one of the greatest values of an advisor. And the reason for this predominantly is that if we get it wrong as individuals, if we just rely on ourselves to manage our emotions and we get it wrong, it can be hugely costly. Now, some of that comes from investors being too nervous to put their money to work in the first place. So probably the most reliable behavioral cost for most investors is not what they do when they invest. It's the fact that they sit with too much of their money doing nothing for year after year after year. And so that can be very costly. But then also when we're in the markets, we do things that are costly. We buy high, we sell low, we trade too much, etc.
I think the reason why this is so important is because it is so close to our lives. You know, this is how we as individuals and as households, we manage our own money. This is real money that we're making or we're losing. So it's very much close to really the welfare of each one of us. And I think the second thing is there are so many mistakes that people make. So it's something that is so high stake, it matters so much, but you also think it's going to be fixable. But you know, it is also when you're actually implementing this, it's not as easy as you think. So I think this is just something that truly kind of like matters a lot, but also hopefully in the future we can improve on actually how households actually make their decisions.
So join me and Joe Wiggins as we explore with some of the world's top experts in behavioural finance the biggest mistakes investors make and how to avoid them.